This meeting of the Board of Internal Economy is called to order. First of all, we have the minutes of the previous meeting. Any concerns about the minutes of the previous meeting? Hearing none, I'll go on to business arising from the previous meeting. Any business arising from the previous meeting? Not seeing any, I'll go on and we'll have a presentation from Michel Patrice, Deputy Clerk Administration, Stéphane Aubé, Chief Information Officer, Susan Kolba, Senior Director, A and LT. I know the Long-Term Vision and Plan. What's the A? Architecture and Long-Term Vision and Plan, Program Management Directorate. This is concerning, of course, the Long-Term Vision and Plan. Allez-y, monsieur.
Monsieur le Président, members of the...
Mr. Speaker, members of the board, we are here to give you an update regarding West Block and the Visitors Center.
Block rehabilitation is very complex. It also includes phase 1 of the new Visitor Welcome Center, which has been designed to be the front door to Parliament for the public. While major structural construction was near completion in June 2018, other construction activities were and are still ongoing, such as construction work, deficiency reviews and correction, landscaping, IT and security integration, commissioning and testing, along with all occupancy readiness activities. La Chambre des communes et services publics.
The House of Commons and Public Service Canada collaborated diligently in order to make sure that the work in West Block and in the Visitor Center goes well. The work is doing in parallel in order to finish the project.
Those facilities has commenced and will continue until the end of December. Major and minor dry runs have been carried out to work out operational and building issues, with the remainder planned for the next 2 months. As it happens, PSPC is handing over to the House of Commons zones in the building as they are completed. It is expected that minor deficiencies will continue past and over the building without disruption to Parliament over the many months ahead and probably at least a full year. En ce qui concerne l'aménagement paysager,
with regards to exterior landscaping and parking, work is expected to be completed by the end of September.
That the project is on track for the Senate also. Now, in terms of the presentation, in terms of the update, there's the security component status.
We'll have to do that in camera, but I suggest we save that until we have to go in camera later on legal matters. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alors, pour conclure un peu cette présentation.
So to conclude this presentation, Parliament is a unique environment and needs facility to offer uninterrupted services. We are satisfied that we acted prudently in taking the proper time to ensure the West Block is fully functional, including all required technology, provides safe and secure facilities, and has the appropriate level of fully trained service staff in order to sustain the work of Parliament.
The Visitor Welcome Center will be fully functional and operational when the House resumes in January in its new interim facilities. That being said, we are aware that once we occupy a living building, we may have some surprise in terms of the functioning of the technology or the operation of the building. But we are ready to take on the challenges and to resolve any issues or adapt to this new environment without major disruption to the operation of the House. I wish to recognize the continuous effort and commitment of your administration and our partners, PSPC and PCL, in making sure that this project is a success. It's been a long journey, and we're happy that we're almost there. Thank you. We'll be ready to take on any questions. Thank you very much.
Any questions, colleagues? Not seeing any. Thank you. Merci beaucoup, monsieur. C'est beaucoup apprécié.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Coming from another meeting, I was a couple of seconds late, and maybe Michel had addressed this. And so I appreciate and understand the presentation in terms of the House. Asking you to speculate is not fair, but I'm going to do it anyway. In terms of what we understand from our colleagues, your colleagues on the Senate side, because we've talked about this at this table before, if our state of readiness is where it is, and it's thanks to all the good work that you described, do we have a similar comfort that the Senate, do we have reason to think that they're in a circumstance where they're going to conclude something different in a month from now or 2 months from now, or are you comfortable based on what you hear? It can all change. I understand all of that. But I'm just curious if people have an insight into, is the Senate process with respect to the train station facility equally reassuring?
Yes, it is my understanding that also for the Senate side, in terms of their project, the train station and the One Wellington committee rooms, the project is on track. Yeah.
Merci.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. On continuera maintenant avec le rapport trimestriel.
We will go to the quarterly financial report for 2018-2019. Daniel Paquette, Chief Financial Officer, please go ahead.
Monsieur Paquette.
Yes. All right.
Mr. Paquette.
Je suis ici aujourd'hui pour présenter.
I am here today to present the first quarterly financial report for 2018-2019.
Had to come in front of the board here since the end of our first quarter to present to you to help the board support its function in the oversight of the use of the public funds from the administration. This is a report that compares the financial information for the first quarter, which ended June 30th, from the current fiscal year, and we compare with the financial information for the same quarter of the previous year. It is prepared on an expenditure basis of accounting, which is consistent with the Public Accounts of Canada. The approved authority in this report include the House of Commons' main estimates, as well as other items which have already been approved by the board during that quarter. En date du 30 juin, les autorisations approuvées pour 2018-2019.
As of June 30th, the amounts approved up to $529 million represent an increase of 11 million in comparison to 2017-2018. The most important changes have to do with the $10.6 million in investment for the LTVP.
At the end of the first quarter for 2018-19, the expenditures totaled $110.8 million compared to $106.6 for the same quarter of the previous fiscal year. This does represent an increase of $4.2 million or 4%. If we do look at the table in the report that shows the expenditures by type of cost, you'll see that the significant increase in expenditures from year over year was related mainly to salaries and benefits, which did increase by $5 million. This is due to the investments made in our long-term vision plan and also other major investments such as the adjustments to our food service modernization and the optimization of their services, the House officer disclosure, the human resource capacity for pay and benefits, and there were also other implications as a result of cost of living increases for many of our employees in the House Admin. There was also an increase in staffing actions compared to previously for member staff. De plus, les dépenses de location et de licence.
Moreover, the spending and location decreased compared to the previous year. This decrease is associated with the payment period to renew the licensing for software with our network. The payment was made in March instead of April in order to respect the deals that we have with our suppliers.
This is for year over year, and that shows a slight increase of 0.3% compared to first years for utilization of resources in that particular quarter. So, Mr. Speaker, that concludes my presentation for this first quarterly report. Je suis disponible pour répondre aux questions des membres.
Thank you very much.
I'm available to answer your questions.
Just a question about the LTVP increase, and I think we can all recognize that that is a major project requiring significant resources. Is there an anticipation, however, I would say that it's the experience of myself anyways, that when say House Administration receives additional funds for a project, that perhaps there is not a plan to get back down to a different level once said project is complete. So is there a plan? Is it in the plan that once the LTVP is completed, will we see the same level of funds required, or will that be reduced once that project is complete and we've moved over to the West Block facility?
All right. To put everything in perspective, when we look at the actual project cost, the building, the construction, and installation of all the equipment in there, that is the Public Works project. So it's not expenditures that are in our reports here. What we have is our adjustments to the capacity to support the newer building, the new technology, and the new way of doing business. So although there is capacity to ramp up and get us in there, so there will be a reduction when I come back with the main estimates and things like that we'll see a slight reduction, but it's not in the order of magnitude compared to the size of the project, because this is capacity to adapt to the new way of doing business in a very modern building.
So this isn't really a surge to get us over there. This is the new normal, really.
There is a surge, but it's not tens of millions of dollars. It's a smaller amount. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Holland.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So just on that point, and excuse me, I'm new to the boy. Welcome. Thank you. Appreciate that. Could you expand upon the point that you're making in terms of supporting new ways of doing business? So how is that actually being how is that manifest? In what ways will we see those services be conducted differently?
I could probably ask Stefan or somebody from the project to come and talk about this, but a big part of it's being a more modern technology, the way services are provided from those technologies and the tools. Typically, historically, we've bought technology and we buy up front the licenses and the use of them once, and we have them for the duration. Now everything is on an annual renewal that we have to pay an annual service and an annual capacity, and the fact that we have upscaled a bit of that piece. But I'll let our experts here get into more details.
Mr. Holland, the majority of the fund that we're seeking through there, it's actually for the management and the life cycling of the assets that have been generated with this new construction. So there's large amounts of networking equipment, there's large amounts of audio and video broadcasting, and there's large amounts of IT and physical security equipment that's been installed in this facility, which weren't there in the existing facilities that we have right now. So the money that we're seeking is to maintain, support them, as Dan's talking about. So basically the licensing is the ongoing licensing on a year-to-year basis that we have to pay to the Cisco's of this world, to the Microsoft of this world. And then there's also the actual life cycling, the break fix, the repairs, and all of that. I would say that 80% of these costs are actually around that, and 20% are really around the maintenance and support of these costs, sir.
So if I'm to understand, Mr. Speaker, then the costs are for individuals who are going to maintain and continue to keep these systems updated. Can you explain to me, because we would have already had within the House as it currently exists today, audio and visual capacity, networking capacity. So what additional services are being delivered for this delta in terms of the difference in costs that we're looking at?
So the majority of the funding, for example, like I'll give you an example, all the security equipment were not connected to the network previously. Okay, so there's a large increase in investments on the networking side that didn't exist in the any existing facilities. The complete, if you call the integrated security system, is now overlaid over a network. So this requires major investments on the networking side of the business, and also the device that we're using. As you've noticed in this building, we don't have, I don't want to get into the details, but we don't have access control in many areas. Now we have access control through the facilities, so there's large investments that were there. There's going to be more community rooms that are going to be televised than we have currently. The audio visuals in the rooms that are being built is completely different than these facilities. You can expect an investment of capital investment of around $2 million for the audiovisual and the broadcasting equipment per room that we didn't have in the existing facilities, sir. So this is where the funding is actually coming from.
Yes.
The difference in...
I'd just like to add,
okay.
And I appreciate the fact that you're new to the board. When we came to the funding about a year ago forward, and we looked at almost a 3-year outlook, we had committed to the board here that we would come back during that 3rd year once we had really gotten used to running that new building and the new technology and the new way of doing business to adjust the funding appropriately to what we need for one way or another, so that we truly understand the implications of this new building for us. So we will be coming back and getting into the level of detail that would bring your comfort that we are only using the money we need.
So just 2 quick points, if I could, Mr. Speaker. I think one is if we could have, sort of current state where we are, and then contrasting that against what we're moving to, so that we can see that the difference in capacity, so that we can understand what those investments are getting us. And also, I think that's valuable for members to know what additional services are going to be available, or how things might be being conducted differently. So it's not just for the purposes of understanding this particular expenditure, but I think also to understand the new services that might be at our disposal. And as a supplementary to that, if I could, does this envision, or does this additional capacity envision new ways of doing business in the future? So, for example, the ability for members to receive matters such as this electronically, vote electronically. Is the capacity go beyond those services that you're immediately offering? Is there additional capacity that's contemplating sort of where the ball might be going on some of these things?
So the investments have been made in the infrastructure for allowing the definition of new services such as this in the future, sir. So the networking infrastructure, like for example, Wi-Fi has been installed everywhere in the facilities so that we can actually have different electronic mediums to provide documentation such as for these meetings. We didn't have that in these facilities, so we did provide the infrastructure. Having said that, the definition of the exact services to improve the community business is something that we work with the members, the liaison committee and the different committees to actually define what specific services that they'd want to add, recognizing the infrastructure investments have been made in these facilities.
For that, am I correct in thinking that some of the issues, some of the additional costs are actually because of the fact that we're moving into a more confined space, which, for instance, affects food preparation and food service? Would you like to tell us about that?
Yes, because of the new reality of the future campus, we have to undergo a full transformation of our food services, because now we're going to rely entirely on the food production facility, and we have to transport all the food on a daily basis to the premise, to the precinct, and using the new access at the new visitors welcome center. So that required a number of transformation from our standpoint to better serve the clients.
We're working on a transporter beam, but so far no luck with that. That'd be way too expensive besides, I think. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. And now we're going to have to go in camera to discuss one thing we already talked about, as well as some legal matters. So we'll pause for a few minutes while we go in camera.
Thank you.